On this channel, we've discussed the many ways that you can truly say you've mastered a video game. Whether it be completing every piece of content a game has to offer, or learning to complete it in 10 minutes to blow the minds of your friends. Today, we're going to look at a very unique challenge, and possibly my most difficult one yet. One that has been done before in other titles, but to my knowledge has never been done for the 3D GTA trilogy. This challenge will involve me completing GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas without taking a single point of damage. The truly perfect playthrough. No mission fails, no deaths, no arrests, and absolutely zero damage taken from start to finish. You might ask yourself, Ben, is this even possible? And honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't know. This isn't going to be a video where I've already done the challenge and tell you about it 6 months later, feigning the end result to construct a narrative for you all. At the time of writing this, the challenge is incomplete, by myself or anybody else. You might also ask yourself, why? And that's a great question. Honestly, I've wanted a new large GTA challenge for a long time, and a few speedrunners have inspired me to give it a go. Recently, we've seen an influx of what we call OCO speedruns, where you complete the respective game as fast as possible, but with a mod active that permanently sets your HP to 1, adding a lot more challenge than a typical speedrun. The challenge isn't necessarily what compels me though, but more so the idea of starting completely from scratch, with no guides to follow or routes to copy. I'm going to throw myself into this completely blind, test all of the strategies myself until I find something that works, and then create the perfect run. This also will not be a speedrun. Sure, I'll be going reasonably fast, but ultimately my goal is not to be as quick as possible, but rather complete the game with zero damage, no matter what it takes. A lot of OCO stuff you've likely seen before has been speedrun related, meaning the best idea is typically a very inconsistent one, and you simply take a few deaths to prioritize speed. I'm not interested in this. I want it to be flawless. Let's lay out the scenario and set some rules. In this video, I will be completing GTA 3 without taking any damage, dying, getting arrested, or failing any missions. This will be in one single sitting, streamed live to prove the run is untampered with. While this video will be shortened for the sake of time, the full uncut video of each run will be available on my VoDs channel once it has been completed. If you want to see the full thing to see exactly what was done and when, feel free to subscribe to the channel so you get notified whenever a new video goes up. You'll also be able to see my practice and testing sessions there as well. Only the main missions to progress the story are required, optional missions are not. I might complete an all missions version of this someday, but this is already going to be hard enough. As always, no mods or cheats of any kind will be used, besides the OCO mod, obviously. The OCO mod will permanently set my HP to 1, and make armor disappear immediately if I ever receive it, meaning that any damage will kill me at any time, and I will have to restart entirely from the beginning. Major glitches and exploits will only be used if absolutely necessary. This will be played on PC on version 1.1. The version doesn't really matter. For this playthrough, 1.1 is functionally identical to the Steam release, but just in case it ever becomes a factor, it's documented here. There will also be a tracker on the bottom left corner tracking my deaths, so you can see how many times I've failed. Let's begin, shall we? My main strategy for GTA 3 was very basic, sticking to vehicles as often as possible, as they could take bullets on my behalf, and utilizing as many speedrun tricks as possible, as the longer I cruised around Liberty City, the higher my chances of death. Cop bribes are very useful in these GTA games, as they reduce your wanted level by 1. Usually they respawn every 6 hours in-game, which is 6 minutes of real time. However, if you make a replay over a cop bribe, you can use it unlimited times from anywhere on the map, meaning this replay essentially makes the police a non-issue, which will come very much in handy later. Most of the early missions aren't particularly difficult and involve minimal combat. The only thing worth noting is that I grabbed a cop car after Don't Spank, as this will give me 5 shotgun shells for a later mission, and this strategy on Farewell Chunky Lee Chong to skip a risky fight. If you line it up just right, you can use a pistol to shoot him before the cutscene. The first mission that has a substantial risk of death is Van Heist.
The first mission you're worried about? I'm like mildly worried about this one. Not really worried, but this is the first one where I have a risk of death, I think. As I was saying.
The pickup was the next big obstacle, as this mission involves you being in a very tight space with several armed triads rushing you from all sides. My idea was to cram a car into the alleyway so I could enter it upon triggering the triads, giving me a nice shield. The next obstacle was Triads and Tribulations, where you need to take down 3 groups of triads across the map. 2 of them are non-issues, but the middle group is located in a section that is usually inaccessible by vehicles, meaning I wouldn't be able to take a car in there. Fortunately, there is a handy-dandy AK-47 spawn in Portland that you can grab right next to the mission start, and this is more than capable of killing the guys without much trouble. Blowfish involves you infiltrating a triad fish factory and blowing it up. The issue is that detonating the bomb inside the Trashmaster causes the triads in the compound to aggro onto you, and you no longer have a vehicle. You can run them over before detonating the bomb, just be careful as you can blow up quite easily if they shoot the Trashmaster too many times. With Blowfish completed, that is Portland fully solved, as the final 2 missions involve 0 risk, so on to Staunton we go. Staunton starts with a great obstacle, killing Salvatore. I'm pretty confident that the intended strategy of 360YY no-scoping Sal from the roof across the street is a pretty sound strategy. But if there's anything you should take away from this video, it's that we won't be seeing Dead doing intended strategies. They make me sick. Instead, we rock up to the back of his club and drive by all of his goons as they run out of the door, spawning Sal, and we drive by his ass too. Good night. Under surveillance had me taking quite an unnecessary risk. One of the few minor mistakes in this run.
Definitely need to shoot that guy from further back. I keep forgetting about that. Because he can definitely kill me there. It's unlikely because he's so far away, but he can. If I get unlucky enough there, I will die. And there's no reason to make it a non-zero chance of death, you know? I have a sniper rifle. I have like pretty much infinite range. I can just play with my range to the advantage instead of his.
After dealing with the first dudes, the second guys eat a grenade, and then the third set are easily picked off with a bit of caution at Kenji's place. From here on, pretty much every mission has some sort of tricky part or risk factor, as is the nature of GTA 3. It's a brutal game, and no mission takes prisoners here. Silence to Sneak involves a well-timed grenade drop and getting inside my car just as I start getting shot at. An arms shortage has possibly the biggest potential risk: fall damage. Fall damage is a huge risk, as in GTA 3, even running down stairs or slopes can cause you to take damage. My vantage point on top of the shipment container seemed like a great idea at first, until I realized that I had to get down somehow. Luckily, the container is just close enough to the ground where you can hop down and be okay. Just make sure to walk off slowly, as you don't want to gain too much momentum as you fall. Moving on to Donald Love's missions now, and the difficulty only increases from here. The first mission, Liberator, does have a neat little trick to it though. These guards inside the compound have 2 states: guarding the compound and attacking the player. Once you enter the compound, they switch from guarding to attacking. Pretty simple stuff. However, if on PC you play a replay during this transition period, it will actually switch them back to their previous state. So instead of attacking the player, they keep guarding the base instead and don't attack you. Once you've killed the guards outside, you'll need to find the old Oriental gentleman in one of these 3 garages, and each playthrough his location is random. Inside each garage, there is a guard waiting for you, so 1v1ing them is certain death. You're much better off throwing a grenade just next to the door, as it's close enough to kill the guard in the front, but far enough to not kill the gentleman who might be in the back of the garage. Wakagishira Wipeout has you killing the head of the Yakuza during a meet. Quite a big step up from the last mission, I know. Usually this mission is a pain in the ass, but the typical speedrun strategy actually trivializes this one even in Oko. Simply head to this position and shoot either side of the ceiling light. You should kill Kenji without even needing to head up to the roof. You can verify Kenji is dead by entering your car. If you were successful, it should say this line. If not, have a look in this little gap between the floors. Sometimes Kenji gets knocked away from your second rocket shot, and you can usually see his head poking out just in time to eat a third rocket. A drop in the ocean is heavily trivialized by the bribe replay I mentioned earlier. But GTA games do love to remind you that you are truly never safe, as it proved here during a practice session.
I probably should have saved before this, because this mission has potential to be risky. That's in furnace. Speaking of. Alright, I guess we're redoing Wakigashira. I knew I should have saved. I knew I should have fucking saved. I knew it.
With a drop in the ocean completed, we are on to the final island, Shoreside Vale. In order to complete the game from here, we actually only have 5 missions left. But these 5 missions are, in my opinion, the hardest endgame in any GTA run I've ever done. There's a ton of combat, enemies have massive weapons and won't hesitate to obliterate you. There's dodo flying, aka flying a plane that was never intended to be flown, and the controls are horrendous, and some other crazy stuff that we'll get into later. For now, let's begin with Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is quite the obstacle, as there are 2 combat sections to deal with. The first at the airport isn't so bad. If you're ballsy enough, you can take a fast car and just run down all the guys before they head to their usual cover spots. Just make sure you watch out for this guy, as he has an M16 and will ruin your day if you miss him. The second section is where it gets interesting though, as once you reach the construction site, you see it is filled with armed guards. You are intended to go around the back and fight your way through them, corridor shooter style. However, the actual destination we need to go is right at the start. The only thing stopping us is a fence and the guards. Oh, and fall damage, so don't break your legs. We are getting ahead of ourselves though, as the construction site is back on Stanton Island, and the best method of transport we have is this, the dodo. The dodo is a staple of GTA3 speedrunning, as it is extremely difficult to fly well, but is also way faster than driving from island to island. What makes it so difficult to fly is the fact that it simply was never intended to be flown. The controls are like nothing you've ever seen, and one tiny mistake in the air is certain death. I'm an okay dodo flyer, but I chose to exclude some dodo strats in this run as they simply weren't worth the risk when safety is the path to success. Remember, we are not on a timer. Here's that fence I mentioned. Here are the guards. Most of them you can see from this vantage point, but the guards can see you too, and will shoot you if you get too close. Some well-placed grenades will deal with most of them, including the guards directly behind the fence which you cannot see, so make sure you hear them die before continuing. A sniper rifle will clean up the rest. Now, the old GTAs aren't exactly known for their great parkour, but here we need to do a little trick. Jumping straight over this fence will probably kill you on 1 HP, so instead you can jump to the top of the fence and use it as a sort of stepping stone to kick yourself over to the other side. This breaks up the fall, and you take no damage. With all the guards dead, it's a straight run to the finish. Technically speaking, using the dodo for bait would be the quickest way, but it is extremely difficult to pull off, and just taking a car is fine. For this simple reason, I opted to take the safe method and just drive around grabbing these guys. Nice and easy. Another dodo flight back to the construction site, and one more to take us to Portland at the start of Espresso to Go. This mission is brutal even in casual playthroughs, as you have to go all around the map taking out 9 coffee stalls across all 3 islands. The kicker, they're not even marked on the map, so you just need to find them without any assistance. It gets better when we remember that at this point in the story, pretty much every gang shoots us on sight, so driving through places like St. Mark's in Portland is petrifying. This mission started great, with my dodo being upside down and on fire due to me missing my target. I was supposed to crash into the car showroom so I could quickly grab a Banshee and use it for the rest of the mission. Due to Portland being so dangerous, getting out of your car simply is not a viable option. So use the Banshee, to ram the stalls instead. This does destroy them, but also heavily damages your car, so you need to be very cautious to avoid taking further damage later on. The other islands are much safer, so you can just use rockets or grenades for these. Just make sure to save one rocket for the next mission, but it's not a huge deal if you don't. Another dodo flight after the final stall, and now it's on to Sam. There's two viable ways to do Sam, besides the intended way of course, but that's slow and boring. The first is to head to the airport and shoot the plane down just before it lands. This is the most viable strat if you don't have rockets, as you can pick one up from a cartel guy at the airport. The much cooler and more difficult way though, is to shoot the plane down extremely early as it flies over the dam. This requires a very precise lineup, and precise timing, as shooting too early will make the packages go into the water, and too late will cause them to fly into the lower part of the dam, neither being ideal. However, if all goes to plan, you can pick up the packages and fly straight back to the construction site for a very quick mission. Now, let's talk about the final mission, the exchange. By far the hardest mission in the run, as you'd expect because it's the grand finale. You take $500,000 to Catalina's villa as a ransom for Maria, who was captured earlier, and all of your weapons are taken away from you. You then spawn in the crosshair of a load of guys with assault rifles who all shoot you immediately. So how on earth do you get out of that without taking damage? Well, thankfully this mission doesn't have a big despawn radius for vehicles parked nearby, like most missions do. So you can park a nearby car right next to where you spawn, allowing you to enter the car and let it take all the damage for you. That's only step 1 though. The next question is how on earth do you get through the dam? There's dozens of guys with M16s, flamethrowers, Catalina's helicopter throws bombs from above. How do you fight through it? The answer is simple. You don't. Instead, take the dodo and fly it straight to the roof. You don't trigger any of the enemies this way, which would usually be bad, as it means that you cannot trigger the next part of the mission. The run officially ends once Maria is nearby and Catalina's heli has been destroyed, and at the moment, the heli is immune to all damage. If we don't trigger the next section that allows the heli to be destroyed, how do we progress? Well, there's one little glitch that we can abuse here. Once you're on the roof, wait for the helicopter to land. Stand facing it, and make a replay of you standing looking at the helicopter. This is identical to the Brivestar replay I mentioned before, but the use case is very different. Replays aren't actual replays of what you've seen, they are more like reconstructions of the events saved into a file. So this helicopter you're seeing in the replay is actually more like a replica of the heli that you're seeing in the mission in real time. And it just so happens that this heli in the replay isn't immune to explosives. So, shoot a rocket, and while the rocket is in mid-air, play the saved replay you made. This spawns in the replay helicopter, the rocket collides with it and blows it up, and as far as this 2001 game is concerned, you've blown up Catalina's helicopter. Not only that, but if the heli is blown up at any point during the mission, Maria will spawn as a failsafe that we will happily take advantage of. So, go grab Maria, and that's run complete. The entirety of GTA 3 beaten in one sitting, no cheats or mods, without taking any damage, first try. So, is it possible to beat GTA 3 without taking any damage? Absolutely. Should you be embarrassed if you didn't also do it on your first attempt? Absolutely. Jokes aside, this is a really fun and unique way to play these games. Give the challenge a go yourself and see how far you get. So, where do we go from here? Well, to Vice City, of course. Thanks for watching. That was a bit early. There we go. Let's fucking go. First try, dude. First fucking try. 0 damage. Let's go, dude. One attempt. I knew it. One fucking attempt. You literally can't get better than that. What's the overall time? I don't know. Who cares?